Today, I have a fantastic guest who I have known for a little while now, and I'm really excited to bring Terry Modica on. And we're going to be talking about her book, and it is called 30 Days to the Father's Heart. So, without further ado, here she is. Hi, Terry.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks so much for being here. So, 30 Days to the Father's Heart. How did you get the inspiration to write this book?
It really began, I would say, over 40 years ago. I was a young adult, newly married, and beginning to analyze my relationship with my father from the perspective of I'm not living under his roof anymore. And I'm married to this wonderful man who treats me different than my dad. I was even, when I was dating him, I was even deliberately looking for somebody who was different than my father.
Oh, wow.
Because in high school psychology class, they talked about how girls end up marrying somebody like dear old dad, and I did not want that. So here I was married to somebody who was quite different, and I was glad for that. But I was now starting to develop spiritually and independently, and was starting to examine why did I want to marry somebody so different than my dear old dad? One of the first things that I learned from my husband is how to hug, because my parents, both of my parents, but especially my dad, were they weren't huggers. And when they did hug, it was cold and stiff. And so my husband, he came from an Italian family, a big family, all warm and huggy family. And I realized that I needed to make some changes in myself that had been influenced by my parents without me realizing. You grow up and you think it's normal, whatever you're growing up with. You see your friends' parents and you think, oh, that would be great if my dad were like that. Or I'm glad my dad's not like that one, whatever. But it doesn't really click until you start to try to become your full potential as an adult. And when my husband and I would be at gatherings, meet up with friends or something, and we'd hug each other. The friends would hug, and eventually some bold friend said, Terry, you don't hug very well. You should learn from Ralph. That's my husband.
Wow.
So I said to Ralph, please teach me how to hug. And yeah, so that was one of the turning point moments in my life where I really began to examine my relationship with my father and why I wasn't the way I wanted to be.
Hmm.
I had a spiritual director, and she told me that all of this was also affecting my relationship with God. I learned from her, my spiritual director, that we project unto God what humans have been like for us. My father, he wasn't warm, but he was good at punishing, and he was not a physical abuser, but he was angry a lot. And I never felt that he listened to me or understood me. There were many times when I disagreed with him, and legitimately so. Uh, for example, there was one time when my best friend said, let's go bowling. And I had never been bowling before. So I went and asked my parents for permission to go bowling. I think I was in middle school at that time.
Mhm.
And my father said no. And I'm like, why not? And he said, because I said so.
Ah,
And I'm like, there's got to be more reason than that. By now, at this point in my life, I was like, come on, how do I make this man understand me? How do I have a reasonable conversation? If he gives me a good reason not to go, like, we're at the same time that you want to go bowling, we're actually going to go visit somebody or something like that. We got other plans. That's one thing, but he didn't have any answer. And
mhm.
I started to cry, and I was like, trying to explain. I was trying to use words, find words, and my words never sank in. Eventually, after maybe an hour or something like that, he changed his mind, and he admitted that the reason why he said no is because he had tried bowling when he was younger and didn't like it. So he was trying to save me from not liking it.
Interesting. Okay, so
And
how has this is almost roller coaster like relationship with him, how does that inform what's in the book? What's the book
well,
about?
that's actually one of the stories I put in the book. That's an example of how I felt like my father didn't listen to me. So
Mhm.
imagine what my prayer life was like if
Mhm.
I didn't think God was listening to me. And so over time, I became very involved I became a spiritual director for others. I helped some people with inner healing. I learned how to do that. And I developed a ministry of helping people find God as he truly is, not as our misconceptions tell us he is. And from that, I was over the years getting lots of feedback of people who were really, I could see that they were having trouble in their relationships with God, and understanding that he really loves them and he's not just there to punish them, or that he's safe, because a lot of people have been physically abused and sexually abused, and God doesn't seem safe if you've had that background.
Mhm.
Love doesn't seem safe if you've had that background. And so, in ministering to people, listening to people, I realized that they would benefit from my journey and from what I learned on my journey. Back in about 2018, I started writing things down, and it took about 2 years to put out the book.
Mhm.
It's a book that is basically like being guided by a spiritual director with exercises to do
Mhm.
to help separate, to help you realize, yes, your father and mother, any authority figure, uh, where they failed to be the perfect parent. They were a bad representation, and we do the same thing for our kids, and any kids that we might teach in school or whatever. And we all everybody looks for the perfect parent to guide them, and no human being can be that. And some of them are way worse than others, but even the best of them fail at it. And everybody has some handicap, some misconceptions about what God's fatherhood is really all about. And so my book, ta-da,
30 days to the Father's heart.
that goes through layer after layer after layer. It's called 30 days, but it's not to be done in 1 month.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah,
Why
it's
why 30 days?
you think of a day as a step on the journey,
Mm.
a step forward, and a lot of steps when you really make significant progress because you're really digging up something that needs inner healing or processing in some way. You need to take more than, just sitting down for 20 minutes to read a chapter and then the next day read another chapter for 20 minutes. The book is all about just helping you make the progress that you've been wanting to make and reach your full potential in relationship to who God really is.
Well, thank you so much, Terry, for being here. I really appreciate it. You can grab a copy of 30 Days to the Father's Heart. And if you want to learn more about Terry's ministry, you can go to gnm.org. Terry Modica, thank you so much for being here today.